Hi, my name is Jaden Gorham. I'm from Hebron High School just outside Dallas, Texas. I teach chemistry and I started the esports program at our school. I've had the privilege of getting to implement gaming concepts into the curriculum just this past semester. And now it's evolved into this elective where we actually had over 170 kids sign up for it in this next coming year. And so, kids are, lining up to try to take this elective.
Gaming Concepts is an innovative curriculum that blends the excitement of competitive gaming with STEM and educational objectives to foster a strong sense of belonging among students. Schools using Gaming Concepts reported an increase in attendance of up to 10%, alongside an overall rise in self-esteem by 8.3%, and nearly 82% of students expressed they had never participated in any extracurricular activity before Gaming Concepts. Written by educators, for educators, Gaming Concepts features 5 unique courses distinctly tailored for middle school and high school students passionate about this growing industry. Bring the power of esports into the classroom, and you'll find just how impactful Gaming Concepts can be for your school.
My name's Alex Herby. I'll be one of the moderators tonight, along with Dr. Christy Custer. I was a teacher for 10 years before switching to Generation Esports, where I helped to manage the digital education forefront for the Gaming Concepts curriculum series. Christy?
And I was an educator for 24 years before I came over to Generation Esports. And I was an English teacher, assistant principal, and principal at an alternative school for at-risk students. And so I like to say I don't play necessarily video games, maybe old video games, but I sure love a lot of people who love video games. So that's what brought me here.
Wonderful. So we're going to go around and have everybody introduce themselves on the panel here. That way you can get a little bit of information from them. So we're going to start with JD, and we'll kick it off with you.
How you doing? JD Career down in New Orleans, Louisiana, representing NOLA Grown Gaming. We have 2 facilities that we work through our recreation department, where we deploy the amazing Generation Esports blueprint and all of our learning there. I'm looking forward to getting more into about how we're able to use this for our community. Thanks.
Absolutely. All right, Tanya.
Hi, everyone. So unfortunately, I don't have a gaming background. I'm Mother Dearest, as she calls me, to Alanis, who is a professional esports gamer. She's also the Commonwealth Gold Medal winner for Team England. And yes, I guess I'm here just to speak about, my experience with Alanis, and then, just my understanding of the gaming world as a parent.
Perfect. Perfect. Chris.
I love that. Thank you. I'm not a gamer either. I'm here because of my son. So yeah, my name is Chris Bukowski. I'm a co-founder and CEO of Coalition of Parents in Esports. We're a 501c3 nonprofit. We run programming and scholarships for kids, just to try and help educate kids, parents, educators on all the benefits around gaming, and really kind of make their journey in the esports gaming space as good as it can be. So thanks again for having me.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you, Chris. So, we've got all of you on here from different backgrounds. John, Chris, you guys are from kind of organizations centered around esports. Tanya, you're coming from that kind of personal connection with your daughter, who's a professional Rocket League player. And then you have Christy and I kind of on the education side. And so we kind of have this weird kind of trifecta of being able to hit all of the different aspects of what parents, which is what I assume is going to be our audience tonight. That's what I kind of geared it towards, but educators too, what they're wondering about this esports or video gaming and how it can be beneficial, what your experiences are with it. And so we're going to talk a lot about, that kind of dynamic and, what it's like from the parent side, what it's like from the kind of educational information side, and then what it's like from the curriculum and career side, because I'm sure you guys probably, Chris and Tanya. Jay, do you have any kids? I should, before
3
I start
boys,
making
yeah.
3 boys,
yes.
yes.
Yeah, 10, 7, or 10, 8, and 4. So
yeah, wonderful. Yeah. So it's, and Christy and I both have kids. So it's like, I'm sure that, a lot of us would be more accepting of gaming had Gaming Concepts or something like Gaming Concepts been in the schools at that time, right? It wouldn't be such a stigma, instead of, kids actively participating and gaining career skills. So we'll throw some of that stuff in there too. But today I want to start out with JD and talk about NOLA Grown a little bit. So, obviously NOLA Grown, I see a lot on LinkedIn and Instagram and all your socials. You do a lot of stuff with kids. It's really inspiring. But I want to talk about the Teen Challenge program that incentivizes participation. What impact have you seen on students' personal development through that?
Yeah, I think for us having a program, so the NOLA Grown Nord Teen Challenge is a part of the New Orleans Recreation Department's infrastructure to where young people from the city of New Orleans, it's a 6-week program, and they have a chance to earn up to $450 by coming to the program each and every day, right? And so I think first and foremost, just to have that initial uh, carrot, if you will, to sort of dangle out in front of the kids. Well, I can show up and play games for and make $500, sure. But what we really try to do is once they're in there, we recognize the kids that we have um, are coming from those heavily stigmatized families. And so what we find is like a wax on, wax off approach is sort of our best thing, right? And so we're just like sprinkling in some information, and then, at the end of our 6-week program, we'll have kids do an activation based on what we just taught them. And they don't even realize, oh, wow, I already know how to do this stuff. It's like, yeah, because we've been kind of teaching you along the way. So, working with gaming concepts gives us that foundation. And I think for us, it makes it feel like it's an official learning environment. And I think that really just kind of sets the pace for everything that we try to build on. Like I say all the time, gaming concepts is the foundation that we can build everything else on.
Absolutely. Appreciate that. And, programs like yours and others, I'm interested to hear about Chris's program as well. They need that foundation to get kids in the door because once you get them in, it's a lot easier to educate them or to give them the information that's needed, whatever your program's goals are going to be, whether that's, esports, youth group, Boy Scouts, you got to get them there so that you can get them the information that is wanted. Christy, you're going to say something?
I was just that's such a great getting them there. That's what this is all about. I think that's the engagement piece is so important. And so, Chris, I did want to jump on when Alex said you have a gamer also. I don't think I may have not communicated that to Alex or just didn't talk about it. Who is your gamer?
So my son is Skeptic. He was a Fortnite pro. He went pro. He went and viral at 13, 14 years old. He's 20 now,
Wow.
which is still kind of crazy to me. He'll be 21 in a few months. But yeah, that's him. He was he's the whole reason I'm here and the whole reason we started the organization.
Well, and the reason I know who Skeptic is I also have a son who will be turning 21 in a couple of months. So they grew up, whether we knew each other or not at the time, and we've known each other for a while now, but I knew of him because of my son. And of course, Fortnite, now I have an 11-year-old also. So we're still into we're still in
So it
there.
starts all over again. Yep.
Tell us a little bit, now that you have been through, went viral at 13 and now he's 21. Can you talk a little bit about not just his journey, the good, the bad, the ugly of gaming? I know that's a lot, but maybe talk a little bit about how did it help him? How did it hurt him? And what is he up to now?
Wow, yeah, that we could have a whole nother
Yeah.
another talk on the good, bad, and the ugly. I mean, I saw him as far as the good goes, I saw him really flourish a lot when he was a very shy, quiet kid. Um, Not a whole lot of friends in school growing up. And very, very much kept to himself. But once he started gaming and streaming, he really started to come out of his shell. And once he turned 13 and he started streaming, he would hit the record button or go live button. His personality really came out. So it was a comfort for him. That's where he felt most comfortable. That's where he really shined as a kid growing up. And I saw him do a lot of things that I would never have even dreamed of doing as a 13, 14-year-old. He was he was branding himself, he was marketing himself, he was learning communication skills, leadership skills, networking. He had a whole team of editors and uh, people in his network that he would have to pay in other countries. So he's learning his finances. So he really learned a lot of like real world tangible skills out there. Um, so it was great watching him grow up at such a young age and really learn a lot of that stuff. And like I said, I wasn't doing any of that at 13, 14. And seeing him also branch out when he got a little bit older to, modeling, and he was working with Ford models and doing deals with Puma and American Eagle. So it was really great to see him like expand outside of gaming as well.
And what caused you to start Cope?
So honestly, there is a lot of toxicity within the community. One of the secret reasons that Shay and I started Cope was to kind of get rid of that toxicity and get rid of that negative stigma. So some of the bad things that I've seen weren't really so much towards him, but myself as a parent. I got a lot of backlash from community members, from the school when I had to pull him out of school because his life was getting very crazy and chaotic. Um, Friends and family, they didn't really understand the space. They didn't understand why I was letting him sit in front of a computer. And everybody always kind of just thought that like gaming is a very solitary uh, activity, and he's not going to have any social life. He's very sedentary life, and his mental health and wellness is going to go down the drain, is rotting his brain, and none of that's true. Like we found the opposite, which is why we started Cope, so we can really shed a light on that and kind of fight that negative stigma and get rid of that.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned a lot of 7 years ago, I'm trying to calculate back in my mind for math, but 7, 8 years ago, there would have been a lot more stigma around video games of it being a solitary and kind of singular thing. And then also that it relates to violence in schools and in people, right? We all thought that was, where most people thought that was the case, which we know is not true. But, how did you, and I want to talk to Tanya about this too, but what were those early days like? I'm actually going to start with Tanya, but what are those early days like when your daughter started gaming and started gaming like a lot, to where you noticed it was like, this could be a problem. Am I supposed to be worried about this?
Yes, definitely. I remember back then when India, she came to me and she started watching a lot of YouTube, gaming stuff on YouTube. And I wasn't sure about the whole gaming scene and didn't know anything about it. But I know India very well. And she said to me that she was interested in this. And one thing, we had a very open relationship. So she would tell you everything that was going on. And she came to me, said she was gaming, wanted to do more of it. And I was like, okay, we can work on this, but it got to a point where it was excessive, what I thought was excessive. And I didn't understand that, there is something called rank where you need to build your ranking. In order to build your ranking, you have to play. And, I can't just say get off the game now and, because I can destroy what she's done for the last maybe 8 hours of gaming. So we had to work around that. And it was me being open to learning as well as a parent from her. I think that was an important piece for me. Um, I was worried, you heard all the negative stuff, grades are going to go down, she's going to get into trouble, all of these things. It was absolutely the opposite for me. India, we talked about safety online, being safe online. I made sure she was aware, never go anywhere with anyone. If you need to go somewhere, let me know. And I remember our first gaming experience. It was actually in this very dark, dingy place. And I was like, oh my God, where are we going? And I was like, okay, this is going to shake her out of it. It did not. But I was very happy that I went along, because at least it showed her that, I was open to this, and I kept my word that I would always support her. 2 weeks ago, we were in Sheffield for an event. So at 19, I'm still following her around. Um, so I can support a lot of what Chris has said because I've had, the same experiences with India. I've seen, her thrive, really do really well, some great things, and as a result of gaming and esports at a very young age. I mean, I remember when she came with her first contract and she said, "Mom, I need you to sign a contract," and she was about 14. And I was like, "You must have lost your mind." And she was like, "No, there's a contract." And when I opened it, sure enough, it was a real contract. She was signed to a team in the US. So at 14, having all of these experiences, she said she's going to Commonwealth, to try out for Commonwealth. I was like, oh my God, this is like real. Then we had another team signing. She was signed to a team in the UK called Endpoint. And I was like blown away. We had, she's done work with Microsoft, as a guest speaker for Bet. She has her own Mindcast figure. These are all things that, I mean, even at my age, I've not done. And it's to have her do that at such a young age and see her grow in such a way. These are things that no classroom can ever teach you.
Mhm. Absolutely.
A lot of, just to add on there, a lot of parallels with our story. And that the key is having that open relationship with your kid and being understanding and not being afraid to dive into something that you have no idea
No,
about. So kudos to you. Love it.
Yeah.
thank you. Same to you, Chris.
Thank you.
Yeah. Now I want to piggyback on that real quick before Christy asks some more questions. But as a parent and this kind of starting off, and I'm in that same boat right now with my kids all being my 4 kids all being under 7, and JD's kids are 10 and under. And it's like you're dealing with that struggle of parents. I assume we've all kind of are going to go through this or have gone through this, where how much is too much in these beginning eras or these beginning stages, right? And so what kind of methods or how did you approach it when it was casual iPad time or Xbox time, and they're playing, but they're starting to play more and more. You're asking them to get off, but they're not. What was that kind of like, that beginning struggle of they're just not listening to me anymore, right? Like, can you talk to that a little bit, either one of you?
For me, with India, I was very strategic. India plays the piano as well. And one of the things I said to her, I don't care if you game, when you game, how you game, you're not giving up certain things. You must have a social life. So you must find time, to go out with your friends. You must maintain your music. And she actually had to played the piano. Each time she played, based on how long she played, she was literally buying time to game. And so I was very strategic in a lot of things that I did with her around gaming because my thought process was that when this is over, and I thought it was just a phase, when it is over, you would have gained some transferable skills. So even in, I could hear her playing with her team. And sometimes when she's lost and, is not going well, she was like a beast. And I was like, okay, now after that game, we need to have a timeout. And I would talk to her and coach her. Okay, that didn't go so well. What sort of conversations you can be having with your team rather than lashing out, at them. And then over time, I would hear her use the words I've said to her, like, what went well, let's talk about what didn't go so well and how we can improve that. So I think even though your kids are gaming, you can use that time to teach lessons to them. Make sure that come up with a way that you're getting what you need as well from what they're doing, what they're enjoying. And I said to her, one of the things, I don't care when you submit your homework, just make sure that your teacher never called me to say that your homework is late. And I've had times, one time over when COVID, the teacher called and she was like, she was checking on India because she was submitting, homework around 2 a.m. in the morning. And I was like, is it wrong? Is there a problem with it? And she was like, no, she's just concerned. I said, well, she's gaming, so she's just getting her homework out of the way. And as long as, it's done and submitted, I don't care when it's submitted, and by doing that, she learned to manage her time pretty well.
Kenya, in the United States, we call that bribing our children.
Reinforcement.
I meant reinforcement. Thank you, Chris. I meant reinforcement.
Reinforcement.
That's the gaming term, right? Reinforcement.
That's the education term is reinforcement.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Chris. I'm so sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. Yeah, and with my son, we were always a gaming household. I was a casual gamer growing up, and that kind of rolled over into Griffin, and we were just a casual household. Everything from Mario Kart to Incredibles on PS2. Like, we were always playing it after school, relaxing, downtime. But I was always his little league coach. I was his soccer coach, and between you guys and I, like, he was never very good at those. But we pushed through. Don't tell him I said that. We pushed through it. I kid with him all the time.
We'll cut that out in post.
We pushed through it, but after every practice, after every game, he would come back and we'd game together, and that's where he always gravitated towards. So it never really got to a point where it was like, okay, this is getting to be too much, until he like really blew up and went viral. And we didn't really have much of a transition into that. So it was virtually overnight. But much like Tanya, it was like, you can stream all you want, you can game all you want. Like, let's get your practice schedule down. When are your tournaments going on? But first things first, you need to make sure your schoolwork is done. There's no compromise in that. Once your schoolwork is done, like, do whatever you want. Just be smart about it and do it safely.
Right.
And I was always in his chats and social medias as well, just to get that extra eye on it. But yeah, it was a lot of, and when I pulled him out of school and we started doing online schooling, it was, all right, well, you don't have gym now, so we're going to take an hour of your day and we're going to go for a walk, or we're going to go to the gym. So I'd make sure he was at the gym. Once a day, we'd go to the gym, even on the weekends. If we would go for a walk, if it was nice out, we would hop on the bike. We would also do some volunteer work. So I would make sure he was still out there doing all these things, just so he had that responsibility. I would make sure he would get to sleep at an appropriate time, or get the right amount of sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And over time, I started to notice a lot of these things he would pick up on his own, and he would start to self-monitor. Like, he would know when he was tired and be like, all right, guys, like, I'm not playing effectively. I'm not playing really well. I need to go, like, log off and just chill. He would be going to the gym. To this day, he's a gym rat now. He's in the gym 2 hours a day. He's working out all the time. He's eating healthy. He's got me eating healthy. And that all stems back to those things that he was learning at a younger age that kind of carried over.
Yeah. JD, I'd like to transition just a little bit, because obviously we have Tanya and Chris that are very involved esports parents, and you and I come from a similar background where many of the kids that we had interactions with, they didn't have parents, or their parents weren't very involved.
Right.
And so one of the reasons we really wanted to have you on is because you are a mentor, and you really line up mentors, and you found that connection between gaming and mentorship that I don't want to say takes the place of, but adds to the parental role. Can you talk a little bit about, once again, what you're doing down in NOLA Grown? Because I think there's a lot of communities that would benefit from that, and especially as the gamer generation becomes the mentor parent generation. Chris, you said that was something that you always kind of did. And so can you talk a little bit about that? And we just talked today about a fantastic story of a kid that you're helping out.
Yeah, no, Lorenzo. So, what the idea was around this program is that New Orleans is not a esports town. It's not endemic in our culture. It's quite the opposite of our culture. You know, everything about New Orleans is preservation, kind of looking behind, very traditionalist kind of models. You know, sports is very big down here, of course, with our pro sports team and all throughout the high schools. But when it came down to looking, you know, and then obviously we have a massive music program kind of city, right? And so like, so we do, there is space for these a lot of non-traditional kids in the arts programs. But, you know, when you have this rise generation of tech native kids, there was just nothing here in the city of New Orleans. And so we were facing a big issue where we had a rising youth crime that was occurring in the city of New Orleans, and we just saw ourselves. We saw this as a solution, right? And so, you know, me and my friends during COVID, just like everybody else, we started to form these really deep bonds. And so, man, what if we're able to synthesize what we just went through during COVID with our gaming together and form a community and a bond? What if we can give that to the kids? So, you know, when we first started our program, we had all of these high and mighty ideas about, oh, we're going to teach them this and we're going to give them that. But what we very soon realized is that what we were was a safe space, kind of, you know, to what Chrissy was just alluding to, right? This is a space for kids to come and be kids, right? We have kids in our community who are leaned upon to be providers. You know, we have kids in our community who don't see themselves growing up past being a teenager because of gun violence or gang life or whatever it might be. And so, you know, the story that Christy was just referring to, you know, yesterday I'm in the library, so I homeschool my kids as well. You know, so we do a lot of the gaming piece, a lot of Minecraft gets involved, you know, and for kind of what we were just talking about, like, hey guys, let's get outside, let's go to the public library and let's get some paper and let's get some books, right? And so, but obviously there's some computers over there for the kids to engage in. And so when I walk in, I saw a young man and he was searching, you know, high powered AK-47, you know, machine guns. And it's a young kid and he's got the big jacket on. I'm just like, he sees me see what's on his computer and he kind of freaks out. And I grab him and we talk for about 10, 15 minutes. And what I had come to learn after speaking to his mom is that this kid, mother on drugs, 3 years old, he was left alone. Um, 5 years old, he was adopted. Now 14 years old, you know, 9 years after this, you know, up and down lifestyle, his adopted mother is like sort of at her wit's end because all he wants to do is play video games, right? Uh, all he does is get in trouble and want to play video games. And so I'm like, you know, I think I might have something for him. Fortunately for us, right? Because of everything that we had, because of the programs that we had, his adopted older sisters were actually in our summer program. And so thankfully, the mom already had, the adopted mother had already kind of known what we were doing. You know, we do the code of conduct, which is like the major thing that we do for our kids. And so even still to this day, you know, we have free play now. That's what we try to do. We try to find these opportunities and present these real world opportunities, right? The biggest thing that I always tell parents is that bring your kid in here. I promise you they will learn something. They will take something away from this experience, be it a hard skill like programming or a hard skill like code, whatever it might be, or just the soft skills of learning how to like coexist in this world without being like, you know, rage all the time. And so what we always tell people is like, you know, parents like, oh, make sure you watch this one. And we kind of laugh at, yeah, we're going to sit there and watch them play Fortnite is what we're going to watch them do. And what we have found is that we will get some of the hardest kids who are just like, I mean, you think they're lost and you think they're broken. And then like a week or two later, they start talking and they're open and they're up and they're ready and they're going. And so for us, you know, gaming and esports is we're using this as really an opportunity to do, you know, it sounds overblown and I've never really said this, but like truly, I guess now at this point, life-saving work because of being able to step into these gaps with these kids, right? And so we're having conversations with district attorneys. we're having conversations with judges, we're having conversations with city council people, because already they're seeing the fruit of what we've been able to provide, with this program.
Right. And I think too, I do a lot of talking about this with educators and parents because I had an epiphany moment where I was yelling at my son for playing video games. And he said, he looked at me and he said, you're wasting your life away and you're not going to get anything out of this. And he looked at me and he said, Mom, this is what my friends and I like to do. And he said, if I were playing my tuba for 3 hours, or I were reading for 3 hours, or I were you know, in a play for 3 hours, would you be mad at me? And it was at that moment that I realized I'm not belittling video games, I'm belittling my child. And I thought, why does it drive me so crazy? Because I have a son right now who will do 4 hours of play practice getting ready for a performance next weekend. I have no problem with that. And it's that purpose, it's that purposeful play where we're not wasting time. And so I think, Tanya and Chris, that's what you guys found with competition. And that's what we're trying to do at Generation Esports. And JD, that's what you found with bringing these kids to this safe space is they're now purpose. There's purpose involved. And so I think it's such a clear change between wasting time and purposeful time. And parents they don't realize that and a lot of times, and so they do think it's wasting time, but it's not. They're learning so much, and to have that dedication to be able to play at the level that Chris and Tanya, your children played at, and then JD to flip a kid's switch just like that, from I'm looking, to make that connection
Right.
with someone that has not been able to make that connection. We just didn't realize that video games could do that. And now that we're starting to realize it, I said in 24 years of education, I'd never seen anything impact kids like that had.
Well, I'll give you another good example. So recently we worked with the local regional transit authority, right? And so now what we're doing now, we're taking this to the next step, right? And so like, okay, yes, we have this big, great games industry, $5 billion industry, then we have the $1 billion esports industry. But what about design, right? What about civic engineering? And so recently what we did was we partnered with the local transit authority and a local elementary school, and we have a bus stop problem around the city of New Orleans. Is that like they're bad? In a place like that's hot and rainy all the time, you need better bus stops. And so we had kids use Minecraft and unlock their minds of like, hey, what are the bus stops you want in your community when you get older, right? And so now we're starting to show civic leaders, we're starting to show other industries and infrastructure people like, hey, you can tap into the minds of these young people like you've never been able to do through gaming. And so
Yes,
it's like we're taking that and we're really flipping the paradigm now and showing like, hey, listen, these kids are important. There's data and stuff in their head, and you can use video games to access it. And that is unlocking a lot of possibilities for us.
for sure.
Absolutely. Talking about, having those kind of transferable skills and everything, Chris, your work with Cope, you know, we're hearing a lot of benefits to esports, but what do detractors that you talk to say, what are the misconceptions that you're hearing from parents, and what do you say to those skeptics?
Well, again, a lot of the misconceptions are it's a lonely activity. It's sedentary. Kids are rotting their brains. They're not learning anything. They're not getting any of their work done. Um, we, I've seen quite the opposite of that, and seen my kid and other kids in the gaming and esports space, whether they're pro players or content creators, do quite the opposite and do so many great things and learn so many great things. And we try to tell parents and relate to parents that like this is just like any other sport. This is just like baseball, softball, basketball, softball, football. Only less than the top 1% are going to make it in being a pro or being a top content creator. But there are so many other great career paths that are out there. And there are so many great things that our kids are learning. We have there's shoutcasting, there's production, there's marketing, there's design, videography, photography, you name it. Like there's a spot here for these kids, and if it's something that they love and they can combine it with the gaming industry, like so be it. Just set them up for success and be there to support them. A lot of times, parents really want to be the ones who teach their kids, and it's you need to listen to me because I'm the parent, I'm the adult, and that's just the role that it's taken on. But I have learned more from my son, um, especially when he was younger, 13, 14, 15, when he was just sitting back and listening to him and learning from him and having him show me the ropes. So we try to encourage parents to really take a step back, take a step out of that parent role and just be there to listen to your kid and engage with them and learn from them. So
Well, and Chris,
Absolutely.
you happened to mention, shoutcasting and streaming, and Skeptic had his start really was with streaming, and we just happen to have a couple of books in the gaming concepts that are shoutcasting and streaming, and I've kind of found that, it's speech, it's giving a speech. And, that is a transferable skill that many adults are terrible at. And what he's doing now, is that a transferable skill that you've been able to see?
absolutely, absolutely. And he's even again going back to learning from him, just going on podcasts and recording videos. I would call him in for help and like, how do I record this? And what's the best way to do this? What's the best approach I should have? And he'll sit there and tell me all the things that he learned being a content creator and how to go about talking to a camera and talking in front of an audience. So yeah, a lot of the things that he's learned going, from public speaking to creative writing and creating video content and even behind the scenes also like managing finances and managing a team of people, like those have all continued and have only grown over the last couple of years since he started.
Right.
I can't imagine managing a team and doing payroll at 13.
It's pretty interesting that Chris said that in India, for instance, she is in university now at 19 on an esports scholarship. Um, and she's studying digital marketing and international business. And again, she's saying to me, Mom, it's so boring because I know all of this stuff already. And I'm like, it's like because she's had the experience.
Mhm.
India builds her own computers as well, and that's when she started. I said to her, if you're going to be spending all of this time, you should learn about technology, and by doing that, she learned how to build computers. She went online, she got the on YouTube, and she had her father and I over a period of months. Each month, we would each buy a piece of equipment so she can put her first system together. And she's been building her own systems ever since. So there are so many transferable skills
Mm.
that, the kids can learn in this space. And they may not go on to be, do anything in gaming as a career, but like India, it could get them an education to do something else, whatever else they want to do. So I think parents should open their minds to all the opportunities and potential that are around gaming and esports.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
was going to say the scholarships piece is the biggest selling point that we have, right? When we tell parents there's upwards of $20 million out there with money left on the table annually, that's
Mhm.
the first thing that perks up. And then, I tell them my own personal story, right? Like I grew up loving to play sports, but then I stopped at 6 feet tall, and I was just like, well, got to figure something else, right? And so, like, I've had a 15-year career in broadcast, sports broadcast, right? I'm still currently an editor. So like when I get off of here, I'll probably eat some dinner and I have to edit the Emirates NBA Cup tonight for TNT Sports, right? But that was my pathway, right? I found a love of this sport, this competition. And so I think that's the beauty of what you just mentioned, Tanya, of just like one thing I tell parents of like, well, listen, there's this thing that kind of happened on accident. So what happened was a bunch of nerds got jobs at colleges and they started esports team in like every department that you can imagine if they could sell the dean on it. Well, 5 years later, well, now we have this very robust system that we can put kids in, right? And so like I think that we, 2 and 3 and 4 years ago, there was a lot of stuff that was very conceptual that I think is very practical now, especially for parents. We can walk them right to university, right? Um, the coaches are fighting over these kids now, right? And so I think that especially for us in the recreation department, here's what I thought and I've realized, and when I think historically speaking, recreation centers were used because college coaches couldn't go into these neighborhoods because they really weren't allowed. And so they set up these spaces for all of these folks. Hey, come and see the kids play basketball. Come and see the kids play football, baseball. And then college scholarships were given. Well, with the rise of the IMG academies and things of that nature, the New Orleans Recreation Department has had to really rebrand itself and into this something for everyone model. And so what we're doing with gaming and esports is really trying to push the envelope on this idea that, hey, teaching kids how to create games, teaching kids about the gaming industry is recreation. And if this is a recreation department, nobody can yell at the kids for coming in here and play all day because that's what it's here for, right? And so we've kind of like hacked a few different systems and put ourselves in a really interesting place. But it's giving parents an opportunity to see this in real time. You walk in and they just announced the six figures that they spent on these labs, and you can see it. And that was a huge thing for us, is that when these kids walk in, and I know you can do this with anything. And I know Christy was big, JD, you don't need all that. You don't need this. You don't need that. I'm like, no, we need it because I need these kids to understand that somebody values them this much, right? As much as you could be, we're investing this in you. And that just changes the tone and the tenor of everybody that we get to work with.
I think it's important too, especially in the situation that you deal with a lot, JD, is that the kids can see themselves now. You have to be able to see yourself as X, whatever it is. You have to be able to see yourself as a teacher. Do you see yourself? And we talk a lot about this in our culture right now, being able to see yourself in or someone like you is really what I'm saying, that looks like you, that talks like you, that acts like you, that's your gender, that's your whatever. When you see those people breaking barriers and you're like, I can do that too.
Well, furthermore, too, I think it's like, myself and the business partner in this, who is a road manager for PJ Morton, who's a multi-Grammy winning artist. But like when they meet us and they see our big resume, like, oh, wow, these guys aren't losers, right? Like, okay, we're good here.
Well, just following up on that piece, I think we would be remiss to skip over it. Sometimes I don't like to just go here, but Tanya, your daughter, that's a little bit of an anomaly. And not, it's getting less and less, or getting more and more women professional esports. But I would say that and you can totally disagree with me, I think it's still an anomaly. Can you talk a little bit about, India's experience as far as being a young female in esports, and how's that benefited her sometimes and worked against her sometimes also?
It has certainly, so she's not just a female, she's African American as well, full long African hair. So in many spaces, and even sometimes when I go to events with her, it's like we're like the only Black people in the room. And many times, she's like the only female amongst, not men. And on the team England, she was the youngest player overall at 16 at the time. And one thing about India, she's very confident, and she's, through gaming, she's gained a lot of confidence. So she's able to hold her own in any space that she goes into. And for her, it's more about, you know, blazing her own trail in breaking the glass ceiling. So she's very much about doing that. She does a lot of work on LinkedIn, just promoting diversity and support for women in the scene. Pretty much, that's a big piece for her. But I know online sometimes I'm in her room and she's gaming and she has, or she's playing rank, for instance, and she has like some weird name, and I'm like, who's that? And she was like, that's me. And she's literally disguising the fact that she's female because, you know, in rank you get everything. And sometimes when people realize that she's a female and she's just beating them, you know, the backlash for her is sometimes pretty nasty. So you know, we still have to do some work around that, and I think that's a deterrent for some women in the scene. But India, she just has thick skin and just blow past it pretty much. But you know, I hope we can get to a place where, you know, everyone is accepting of everyone who is in the scene.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. Tanya, what would you say, your daughter's been through a lot of, I'm sure, a lot of nasty conversations in her time as an esports player. What kind of supports would you like to see put in place at a school, when she's going through this as a young student, in high school, to help kind of curb things like this? And it doesn't necessarily have to be esports related, but what kind of, protections or things in school would you like to see if you had your way, put in place? What you could say to an administrator that might be watching this?
I think education awareness is important. Sometimes because it's not your reality, you don't think about it, and I think that's an important piece. Um, I think, for instance, in schools, we talk about esports. We need to support parents, and I'd like to see more things being done. I haven't been in a PTA meeting for quite some time, but I'm thinking that that space should be, just as we're talking to the kids about the benefits of esports, we should be talking to the parents. You know, how can you support the kids? You know, when they're home gaming, you know, try to get in. You don't have to understand the game. I've tried to play Rocket League once and I think it hurt my brain. But as a parent, I'm just around listening and looking
Hmm.
for things that, you know, I can correct, things that I know. She does the game in peace. I do the parent in peace. So it's you don't have to know about gaming. You just have to know how to be a parent, you know, how to listen, how to support, where to say no, that behavior is not right. And some of these things, you know, we can, as parents, we can stamp out. It's just not in gaming, it's the behavior that's coming across in school as well. In this first day in school, she was punched in the eye and called, you know, a racist name, and that wasn't around esports. So it's how we are behaving with our kids, and when, whether we're telling them it's right or wrong. It's just that they can go on online now and just be just as nasty, and think it's okay. And I think we need to stamp that out. And as we have these programs in school, behavior needs to form part of it. If you're going to be in an esports team, there is a certain behavior we're going to be expecting from you. And I think if we send that message clear, no, you can't behave a particular way and still expect to show up and play. You know, we're not going to be supporting that. I think eventually the message will be sent clearly that, you know, this behavior is not acceptable.
Absolutely right. And just to build off that, like the more parental involvement, whether it's online or in schools, the less we will hope to see some of that toxicity. Um, when we've talked to a lot of school districts, a lot of coaches, they don't want to involve the parents because they don't want the parents to say, hey, like
Mm.
my kid games at home. I don't want them gaming in school.
Yeah.
But the more you invite the parents into the classroom, into the esports club, onto the esports teams, get them a jersey for your kid. Show them how to tell them the schedule, invite them to the tournaments, to the LAN
Mhm.
centers, even to some of the conferences around that are local. The more that parents get involved, the more that they're going to be more accepting of it, but they're also going to be there to hold their kids accountable for their actions. And
Yeah.
that's a big thing, is there's a lack of accountability. Um, we've seen some of that change over the years, and the hope is that it's going to continue to get better, but there's still a lot of work that needs to be done.
Mhm.
Yeah, I
It,
think I was gonna say, yeah, for us, I mean, you already, I think you probably already know where I'm going. Like, we don't start anything without code of conduct, which is all generation esports, right? Like the code of conduct, having the kids set their own rules is an amazing tool that we've been able to see like work even in like one-off events, right? We'll just do like random code of conducts, and I think for us, like New Orleans is a very verbally colorful city, we'll say. So we try to I think because our culture is naturally about like when you think about the Mardi Gras Indian culture, it is very much about call and response and talking and being loud and being in each other's face. So what we do is we kind of nuance it a little bit. It's like, listen, guys, like here's the line between trash talking and toxicity, right? Like, keep it about the game, and as long as y'all GGs afterwards, it's like keep it with that, like, but don't talk about nobody family members. Don't say, oh man, you smell like chicken feet. Like, leave all of that stuff out of it. But like, keep it about the game, and I think for us, what that allows is that it gives these kids that space, and then, like within that time of the game, all of this like frustration, this angst or whatever it is, like they kind of get it out, and then it's over, and then they're kind of over it, and they just they let the steam out. And so I think it's about an intentionality. But yeah, for us, it's like we're always ears open in the labs. Like we will like we're here. Hey, too far, and then they
Mhm.
ease it back, right? And so the kids are they self police, and I think that like the moderators, when we're in the labs, we're very soft spoken, we're one on one, we're not creating that environment. And so I think that like what I'm excited about is that when you think about NOLA Grown Gaming, this is who we are. And like as parents start to experience this and see their kids like, oh wow, and we'll get down on the level and we'll talk to them, and they're like, thank you, because I can't get through to them, and so like that, and the kids start to trust us, and that's where I think really where the magic happens.
Well, and so often, we try to teach that in schools. It's bullying is what it's called in school, but it's not authentic. And so we'll take this bullying situation and we'll often say, how many of you have been bullied? Who's been the bully? And kids, they roll their eyes. Who's gonna raise their hand?
Right.
But when you start talking about it in an authentic way, as far as toxicity in a video game, they light up because everybody's seen it. Everybody's
Everybody's done
seen
it.
it. They saw it last night. One of my favorite stories is Michael Russell, who was a co-writer of Gaming Concepts. He was teaching it at our school, and a kid walked out, and I said, "Hey, what'd you learn in esports class today?" And he very seriously said, "I learned that not responding is a response." And for a moment, I thought, well, that's common sense. But how many adults would we love to teach that lesson? You don't have to respond. Just because someone writes something, or you do not have to respond. So I just think it's such an authentic, a caring adult in an authentic way. That is what teachers are looking for, all the time, is that moment, that teachable moment. And boy, do you get it in esports often.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And esports, it's aside from teachable moments, it's one of those things that brings a lot of people together, right? Esports, aside from traditional athletics, esports brings kids of all abilities and all backgrounds and levels all together, right? And so, I want to ask Chris about, kind of some inclusiveness that COPE moves around, right? And what you would you and how you ensure gaming opportunities and accessibility for students through COPE.
Well, gaming is the great equalizer, right? Whether it's gender, race, ability, disability, everybody has the ability for an even playing field when it comes to that. But going back prior to starting Cope, prior to when my son's career took off, I worked for Developmental Disabilities Institute back in New York for about 22 years as director up there. Worked hands-on with adults with autism, and I saw firsthand a lot of what incorporating gaming can do for kids and adults with disabilities with autism. Helping them overcome social anxieties, helping them overcome fears of medical appointments, and even just connecting with their parents. We had it was actually recently, we had a parent that we had spoken to who their child didn't really have any like full communication with them, and until he started playing Mario Kart and started playing more games with Mario in it, and they would sit down and play with him, and he would just start opening up little by little, and he was just having full conversations with them within a couple months. And those are some of the things that we like to see, just to kind of get out there and really highlight that inclusivity and how gaming can really work and work for everybody. And one of the things that I'm most proud of with my son is when he first started out and he got really big, he had a lot of kids with disabilities, kids with autism, Down syndrome in his community, in his chat, wanting to play games with him. And he would always take the time to play with them and really include them into his community. And that, being that I worked in the field and he grew up, coming to work with me, that made me really proud that he would go out of his way to do that and make everybody feel like they're at home, like they belong. And I just love to see more of that in the community.
Absolutely. JD, any thoughts on inclusivity, how you foster that at NOLA Grown or anything like that you'd like to add?
Oh yeah, listen, I mean, again, colorful community. We got them all, baby. We got them all. And I think because we are New Orleans and we're just this like we're known for that, it makes it easy. I think that in so many other communities where we're starting to, where DEI initiatives becoming like this hot button word. I mean, we are a multicultural people within and of itself, right? And so like this idea of like we don't have this separation, this gumbo. I mean, one of the biggest rap stars coming out of New Orleans, Big Frida is transgender, right? I learned that word years after knowing Big Frida personally. I'm like, oh, well, so what is it? And so for us, there was never an issue about including other people. There was never this idea of like, these people don't belong in this space. It's that like, if you create space in New Orleans, the beauty of it is that inclusivity, that multicultural experience. We're lucky, I think, in that manner of just that is a part of the fabric of our culture. And that's what we want to kind of share with the world, right? Like as people start to notice and know the grown, like, you see the photos that we come up, like it's not a stretch for us to have young Black girls in our program because that's just the community that we're in, right? Like we're in a heavily populated community. And, when you start to say scholarship opportunities to parents, they're going to send their kids. And so what I love the most though is seeing the kids just be those kids, right? They don't know the differences. The only difference for them is like, Fortnite or 2K. Like that's how they separate each other. And so like we bask in that. We always look around and get to look in the labs and just see like that our culture is fully represented in these spaces.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well said. So we're about to wrap up here. So I want to get some, final thoughts on everything from everybody. Tanya, let's start with you. 30 seconds. How can my kids be pro players just like yours? No, I'm just kidding. What advice would you like to give the parents that might be in that same boat where you might have been, 8 years ago, where India was just kind of starting out and they are questioning this kind of behavior in their kids and wanting to play games. What kind of tips can you give these parents?
I would say for your child to be a pro player, it depends on the parent. You can
Yeah.
have a child with amazing skill if the parent is not supportive to sign those contracts, to be open to taking them wherever they need to go, like football practice or whatever it is. They're not going anywhere, because legally you can't sign a contract until you're 18. Technically, by the time you get to 18 as an esports player, you're almost washed up.
Yeah.
So it depends on the parents.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Chris, final thoughts. Tell us about Cope, plug it, whatever you need to do.
Yeah, Cope, check us out online, cope.gg, and check us out on Twitter. That's pretty much where we're most active, CopeGG on Twitter. But yeah, building off of what Tanya said real quick, just support your kids, be there for your kids, set them up for success, just like you would, making sure your kid has the best bat and glove and cleats, and just support them, be there for them, listen to them, and go play with them. It'll help your relationship. It'll help you communicate with your kids. Just sit down and play a game with them and learn what they love.
Absolutely. JD, last thought?
Yeah, for me, partnerships, right? Like I have so much appreciation for Generation Esports, for everything that you all have poured into, and the people and the organizations that we're getting to meet. For anybody out there who's like, yo, man, like I want to get like you. I want, recreation center, whatever it is. What I did was simple. I literally showed up to city council meetings week after week after week and presented a solution. And I did my homework, and I created a program, and then I found Generation Esports, and they were able to take every idea that I had in my head. I was like, actually, we wrote the curriculum already, dude. And so for me, it was like being able to work with amazing people. And recently I moved my family from Southern California back down to New Orleans, to be a part of this amazing sort of like Super Bowl, all kind of crazy stuff for Super Bowl that we're getting ready to do because it's in the city. But I was intentional about that, right? I was intentional about making sure that these kids, I see so often folks who want to start something, they're like trying to continue a legacy. That really wasn't what we were doing, and I think the reason why it's catching so hard is that catching fire so fast is that people understand that we are truly presenting opportunities to young people. Recently said at another city council meeting that the reason why these kids keep getting in these situations is because they don't see themselves past being a teenager. This gives them that thing, right? And being able to drive that home is really what did it for us. So yeah, partnerships. You're not going to do this alone. The more people you can bring along, the better this is all going to be.
Absolutely. So, I want to close this out here. Thank you, so much, Tanya, JD, Chris. You guys have been great. The insights of having two pro players' parents on here, and endorsing the esports, and JD on here providing a great place for kids to go and be themselves and learn these skills, and everything that all of your kids are coming out of this esports experience. I know, obviously, Chris and Tanya, your kids are already doing great stuff, but JD, your kids are getting there, right? They're going through the pipeline of getting through and seeing themselves on the other side. So, to those of you watching this that are on with us tonight, or you're watching this, on YouTube, just kind of keep an open mind. These are the kind of the notes I took down from this is, if your kids are doing this, keep an open mind. Try not to boss them so much, right? And have them bend to your will on what you think gaming can be or should be. Set limits and expectations for your kids and your students, and provide diverse activities or alternatives to gaming to diversify and enrich their lives past gaming, if it doesn't happen to work out for them. So yeah, so again, appreciate so much all of you on here. Many thanks to all of you out there watching this, and the comments and the questions that we've gotten in the chat. If you want to watch this, it'll be on our YouTube channel later this week. And then you guys can contact Chris or JD or Tanya on LinkedIn. Twitter will provide their contact details in the follow-up email, as well as your certificate. So all of you, thank you again, and we hope to see you next time. Thanks a lot.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thanks for
Thanks,
having us.
guys.